Hi guys, so I have just been reading Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's latest work. It's just a tiny book in which she remembers her father, the late Professor Ngozi Adichie. He was a spectacular man, and my reading of this book is unlike any other reading that I have done, that I have shared with you guys, because I am approaching this book from the perspective of a grieving daughter as well, because I have also recently lost my dad, and lots of the examples and the stories that she tells in this book, although we do not share the same father, I think is something about the universality, I think, of the father-daughter relationship, especially if if it's close and if it's cordial and if it's something that you just cannot forget. And trust me, this book has brought about so many memories, because there are just so many things about our two situations that are similar. But I'm going to dwell on this book. I have marked up a few places that I'd like to share with you, especially the beginning. So she talks about the Zoom calls that they had, over the lockdown, and how her family, everybody joined in, and then her parents, of course, joining from their village in southeastern Nigeria, did not have as clear a connection as the rest of them joining in from different countries in the world. And then she also talks about how her 4-year-old daughter says that she scared her, in her grieving. I'm going to read that in chapter 2. My 4-year-old daughter says I scared her. She gets down on her knees to demonstrate, her small clenched fist rising and falling, and her mimicry makes me see myself as I was, utterly unraveling, screaming and pounding the floor. And then she mentions how her brother makes a joke about the fact that anytime that she gets bad news, she should be sure to be indoors, because she has a habit of flinging off her clothes when she receives bad news, which is one of the things that happened to her. I have decided to approach this from a place of love, adoration, instead of pure grief, because that would have me crying, and nobody wants that. And Chimamanda's case is really peculiar, because she not only lost her dad, within a few months she's lost 2 aunts, I think, and in a few months, and I'm sure she did not imagine this even while she she wrote this. On page 6, she had talked about how thinking about her father's death and trying to grapple with the grief had made her to be utterly afraid of what's going to happen next. Who is it going to be next? And she says something. She says, okay, her brother calls me a little earlier than usual, and I think, just tell me immediately, who has died now? Is it mommy? And strangely, just a few months after her father's death, her mother also died. Yeah, really tough. I just cannot imagine the pain that family would be going through right now, but I can only say for sure that this is a really, really important book, because I think one of the ways that I have coped with my own loss and all the other losses in my life, because I think loss and grief sometimes hasn't got anything at all to do with death. You can lose something, and you can grieve the loss of that thing. And I am constantly in fear, I can tell you, of what's going to happen next. After my dad died, I have not only felt worse because of the distance, being in another country and hearing about your father dying. And unlike Chimamanda's dad, he didn't die suddenly. He had been sick he'd been unwell for a few weeks before passing, and had felt utterly helpless, not being able to be there. And so I begin to imagine, because it's relatable when she says it was during the heat of the pandemic and the airports were closed, and she couldn't travel and nobody could get there. So she felt it more. So this is one of the things about the grief that she shares about in this little book. And I think that one of the ways to cope is actually by writing. You know, you write about the things that hurt you, and somehow you start to feel better. I think in therapy they use that. I'm not a therapist, but I have seen and I've heard. Sorry, that's my chicken calling me in the microwave. I have heard people talk about write your feelings, write how you're feeling about this, remember something about the person, something that you shared, and all of that. And all of these things are meant to help you to cope. So, a notes on grief, she summarizes everything that she loved and misses about her dad. And in the very end of the book, she says that she cannot believe that she's writing about her father in the past tense. I'm going to read that part. This is really heartbreaking. I'm writing about my father in the past tense, and I cannot believe I'm writing about my father in the past tense. This is the same for me. I have not even started to articulate, this loss in my own case. But the first thing that happens to you is that you start to talk about your loved one in the past tense, and you feel totally dead inside. She also talks about something that I can relate with, the fact that she says somehow these well-wishers have become complicit, the ones who keeps coming and going and saying, oh, sorry, or, I feel myself breathing in air that is bittersweet with my own conspiracies. Needle pricks of resentment flowed through me at the thought of people who are more than 88 years old. Older than my father and alive and well. Yeah, it happens to you. In my case, my dad was 75, and as soon as he died, I started just seeing birthday posts on Facebook. Someone's father is turning 80 and they're celebrating. Somebody's father is turning 85 and there's a party. As somebody's turned 90, it hurts you, like something it does to you. I mean, there's never a right time for a person to die, but there's never a right time for you to accept it. That's what I've come to learn. And this is one of the things that resonated with me as well. And then the fact that you've spent years telling other people, oh, I'm sorry to hear about your loss, accept my deepest condolences, and all of a sudden you're the one at the receiving end of such things, sometimes without a lot of thought going into it. And then my wariness of superlatives is forever stripped away. 10th June 2020, it was the worst day of my life. There is such a thing as a worst day of a life, and please, dear universe, I do not want anything ever to top it. Yeah. That's and she didn't know that, after that, I think March 2021, she was going to lose her mother as well. It's grief it's horrible, and this little book just captures all the phases and all the things, and most importantly, it celebrates the life. You remember the beautiful memories, things about this person, and you try to make sense of losing them, and then you try to console yourself with the fact that I think they wouldn't want me to kill myself. I think they wouldn't want me to grieve so long. They're fine, I think. And then she talks about towards the end of the book, having one of those dreams where you see your loved one who's dead, and it just looks as if they're just right there, that it wasn't actually him, that has been in the mortuary all this while, and then you wake up and it's just a dream, And another important thing she mentions in this book is how tangible grief can be, even physically. In the first few days after my dad passed, I had this constant pain in my head. It was like a crawling sensation. It would come and go, and ironically, my dad had died from a brain abscess, and then I just started feeling paranoid about things going on in my head, spiders crawling and things like that. But there are just so many ways that physically you get to feel these things. Some people have premonitions. But the thing to learn about this is her father was wonderful, and he was her greatest hype man, like we say. He was always telling her how wonderful she was, and you know how she was greater than so many men, and then of course it's easy to see where she gets it from. You know, having a father who constantly blessed your life with words of affirmation, telling you how wonderful you were, calling you all those wonderful things, and blessing you. That's a treasure, and there's really no way for anybody to go through losing a person like that. And but after reading this, I think everybody should read it, whether you've lost a loved one or not, because what it does is it just helps you to put it all into perspective. I mean, tomorrow is never promised. You hold your loved ones tighter, and hope to God that somehow you'll be able to grieve and let go, and move on, especially if they're a bit old. But there isn't, this book shows us, a perfect age. Your father could be 100 and you wouldn't get over it. But what it does show is that you celebrate the life that was, because that's an entire book where she talks about, the humor in her family, and she talks about his own humor, which reminds me of my dad. Everything reminds me of my dad these days, especially if I read a story about a father's death and a daughter grieving and remembering. So obviously, one of the ways that she honors her dad is she talks about his humor, already dry, crisp, deliciously as he aged, in that signature Chimamanda and Adichie. Beautiful prose. So dry humor, I think, is something that comes with age, because my father, he was like that as well. So obviously this is 88 pages of just celebrating a life, and then talking about all the things that, would have been so hard, at the moment where she was going through them. Being able to write them down, being able to put them into words must not have been easy. These horrible feelings of, waking up and just realizing that it's over. You'll never see this person again. So I'm going to summarize with chapter 3. Grief is a cruel kind of education. You learn how ungentle mourning can be, how full of anger. You learn how glib condolences can feel. You learn how much grief is about language, the failure of language, and the grasping for language. Why are my sides so sore and achy? It's from crying, I'm told. I did not know that we cry with our muscles. The pain is not surprising, but its physicality is. My tongue unbearably bitter, as though I ate a loathed meal and forgot to clean my teeth. On my chest, a heavy, awful weight, and inside my body, a sensation of eternal dissolving. My heart, my actual physical heart, nothing figurative here, is running away from me, has become its own separate thing, beating too fast, its rhythms at odds with mine. This is an affliction not merely of the spirit but of the body, of aches and lagging strength. Flesh, muscles, organs are all compromised. No physical position is comfortable. For weeks my stomach is in turmoil, tense and tight with foreboding, the ever-present certainty that somebody else will die, that more will be lost. That's it, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if it's your first time here, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share. Thank you so much for all your support, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.